Let's get hyped. Welcome into the Husker247 Hypecast. I, of course, am Mike Schaefer, joined by Michael Bruntz, Brian Christopherson, and this week's special guest from KLIN, the Husker Tailgate Show. He's got his normal show Monday through Friday as well. Jack Mitchell, welcome back to the Husker247 Hypecast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to join. It's not going to be as exciting when I listen to the show Friday driving home from work with myself on it and having seen it already. So you're taking that away from me. But other than that, it's a pleasure to be here. I love the podcast.
Well, this time, because you're on the show, you can see that Bruntz actually dresses up all the time now.
Bruntz is wearing a sports coat with a shirt and no tie under it. I did not know there was a dress code for this podcast.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm wearing basketball shorts with this.
Every time I get a TV news person on any podcast, any interview ever, always ask them that question. Always. Yeah. It's just a gimme. It's the free space.
There you go. All right. Nebraska coming off of 2 straight wins, just beat Indiana, just beat Rutgers, heading to Purdue, a house of horrors because of all the sprinkler heads that are lined up throughout that stadium that have ruined Nebraska careers, or at least seasons, for several players. This is a big game. I thought it would be a big game coming into the year because of where it's at in the schedule and thinking that Purdue is going to be pretty good. I no longer assumed it would be as big of a game when Nebraska got waxed by Oklahoma, but now off of 2 straight wins, 3-3, Purdue has rebounded from a tough start where they lost to Penn State and Syracuse in the final minutes of each game to having won 2 pretty important Big Ten games for them against Maryland and Minnesota. We got a pretty interesting Big Ten West game here with Nebraska and Purdue. What's the enthusiasm level for you, Jack, coming off of that 14-13 win against Rutgers?
And I feel like it's kind of sneakily. It's a sneaky big game in that if Nebraska, and I understand, we'll get to the predictions later, and I understand they're the underdog, but like if they pull this off, do people realize the weird, joyful world Nebraska fans are going to be living in? Do we realize that like this is the potential to be the most exciting, the most excited the fan base has ever been after a win since, I don't know, Mike Riley against Oregon? Maybe I don't even know. Like you're going into a 2-week bye week. And against Illinois coming into Lincoln, if you win that, atop of the West in a game where you could, it wouldn't be sarcastic anymore, Mike. I posted the Big West standings sort of sarcastically, like, hey, Nebraska's in first place. Ha, ha, ha. Like the sarcasm goes away if they win this game. It gets weirdly weird. It gets weirdly real at that point if they actually win this game. Not enough discussion this week about the upside of winning this game, especially given the context of how this season is going.
Absolutely. All right. Well, this podcast is to get people excited for this game, and we're going to go ahead and dive right into what we normally do. And we're going to start with a pretty banged-up Nebraska team. Brian Christopherson, a lot of injuries coming out of that Rutgers game. Where are you maybe most concerned about Nebraska's depth after another round of potential day-to-day injuries for guys like Travis Vokalek, Luke Reimer, Quentin Newsome? I'm not sure on the status of Omar Manning. It seems like he's likely out for Saturday. Where do things kind of sit with Nebraska's injuries right now?
Most worrisome is definitely the defensive side of the ball with Reimer, and in his situation. He came over to the sideline and kind of doubled over a little bit. And I thought maybe for a second he got the wind knocked out of him or something, but they just kept looking at him and it took him away. I think that was late first half. Didn't see him again. Malga Clements did play pretty solid in his absence, but Reimer was playing at a really high level and grading out about as well as anybody on the defense the last couple of weeks until that injury. So that's a guy who you'd love to have. Bill Busch said on Tuesday night that he had talked to him and he was feeling pretty good, but he didn't really get into specifics of what that meant as far as playing. I think the other worry is Quentin Newsome, and that sounds like it was a groin injury. He was slow in the giddy up as he was coming out in the second half. I was kind of watching him. He was trailing everybody in the warm-ups. And it could be a deal where, again, you have young Malcolm Hartzog on one island and a great story in Brandon Moore, who is a 6-year senior on the other side, but that's a tall task against this team compared to the last team they played, where the QB play was so suspect at Rutgers. I think Vokaluk's going to be fine. I'm not saying he's 100%, but I think he's going to play. He popped back in the game. Manning, I would really doubt. He was on crutches the whole second half.
Jack, for the people that are unaware, you have been basically the president of the Bomb the Ball fan club for roughly, I don't know,
years.
20 years. Is that fair?
It's been
years?
in that range. It's been over a decade for sure.
Yeah. So is this the most Bomb the Ball connection that you can think of in that time range, where you have Casey Thompson, who's aired it out a little bit, and then you actually have a guy in Trey Palmer that has really kind of come into his own? You have the huge catch against Indiana, and then on a sudden change, even though it was a little bit of a shorter field, they went over the top on Rutgers on that 27-yard touchdown.
You know what it is, Mike? It's sweet, sweet vindication for the club, the Bomb the Ball club. Finally, after years of speaking out and trying to change the perceptions of bombing the ball, trying to make it more socially accepted, you can see the steps that we've made, the inroads that we've made with this program. And somehow it has now become the bread and butter play for Nebraska when they say, hey, you know what? The offensive line isn't blocking too well. The running game isn't doing much. What's the only thing that we can do? You guessed it. Bomb the ball. Keep bombing the ball. Keep bombing the ball. Draw some pass interference calls. Trey Palmer is great finding the ball, especially when he doesn't have a safety over the top. And I think that is now the identity of this offense. It's crazy how key those bombs to Trey Palmer have become for this offense.
It certainly can allow them to put points up on the board in a hurry. Michael Bruntz, where do you see Nebraska attempting to attack Purdue this Saturday? I mean, obviously a lot depends on the offensive line play that you're going to get. A lot depends on sort of how open Trey Palmer can get and who's available for you as pass catchers. So how do you see Nebraska trying to put together a game plan against the Purdue defense that over the last few years has gotten a lot better?
Yeah, and it's a veteran defense too. Like that's, they're not particularly flashy, but they are steady. I mean, they're a top 25 defense. They've recovered nicely from their 1 year with Bob Diaco at the helm there. And I think what they can do is they're just going to make Nebraska kind of chunk it. I mean, they're the anti-bomb the ball defense. And what they're going to make Nebraska do is run the ball, and they haven't given up a 100-yard rusher this year. I think they average about 96 a game on the ground is what they give up, and they can give you a little pressure. And I think for Nebraska, you have to establish some semblance of a run game, in spite of your offensive line struggles, in spite of the horse track grass that you're going to encounter at Ross-Ade Stadium. I wonder how much that affects Anthony Grant's running style. But I think it's got to start there. It's pretty simple. Just run the ball and keep Casey Thompson upright. Those are, two big goals. They shouldn't be difficult, but that's where we are. So I think you're going to have to run it. You're going to have to mix in a little bit of play action and take some deep shots to keep them a little bit honest. But, this is a game that Nebraska is going to have to be efficient offensively. And that's not something that they did particularly well against Rutgers really at any point. So that's the challenge.
Jack, before we switch over to the defensive side of the ball, just from your perspective of how he's played this year, what does Casey Thompson kind of look like to you? And has he been as you expected, better than expected, or a little less than expected?
I think he's been better than expected in that he hasn't been perfect by any means. I mean, we've seen him throw interceptions, we've seen him miss open guys, but I think the biggest thing that I think of when I think of him is poise, and you really need to have that when you've got so much pressure that is coming in constantly. And he's been able to hit his accuracy in those deep throws, frankly, guys, has been really impressive. And so I think, I think he's been more than I probably hoped for. And when that offense has gotten rolling, especially on those opening drives, it didn't happen against Rutgers, but man, he's looked like his best self on those as well. And so, yeah, it's just crazy, Mike, because Nebraska not having the season they'd like to, that could still change, but yet you've got a case that they're as solid at quarterback. And no offense to Adrian Martinez, who I guess is in the Heisman race right now, but you probably have the third best quarterback in the Big Ten right now, arguably at this point. And so that's not an issue. You just got to keep him healthy, which is going to be a concern for the rest of the year, I think.
No doubt. It's a challenge when you're pressured on like 60% of your dropbacks right now, as it seems like has been for Thompson. BC, when I asked about injuries, you mentioned Luke Reimer and you talked about that. What does the picture look like at the second level if you're only getting Luke Reimer for some of the snaps or potentially even none of the snaps on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be calling on Malga Clements to step up for some snaps. Maybe they go a little bit more DB heavy in some cases. Chris Kolarevic, I think you'll see out there at certain points. Obviously Nick Henrich will be a key guy. But those are your main guys that are going to sub in. There's not a lot of dramatic personnel moves you can make, really. I keep thinking or thought a couple of weeks ago we were going to see Omar Brown sort of really emerge, as a central part of the defense, or at least a guy who's half in, half out. And that really hasn't happened. He's been out there in bits and pieces, but they've really trusted Isaac Gifford for the most part there. And I think you kind of expect they're going to continue to do so. When I think of second level, I think of Gifford as that sort of guy, and I think he's going to have the game of his life. I mean, I just think he's going to have to play really well in tackling in space and just being a great cover guy, and just be completely dialed in. And I guess this is sort of the example of Bill Bush's defense, where we've heard all about the simplification and playing faster and having your feet set and what that means. But this is a whole nother animal. I feel like I don't want to build up Purdue into something beyond that you can't stop. I mean, they beat Florida Atlantic by 2 points. They're a team you can compete with, but I do think they're far different than Rutgers, and they're going to challenge guys in space like we haven't seen the last couple of weeks. And we didn't even see against Indiana because of those injuries to key wide receivers, if we're honest.
Bruns, did anyone make a better business decision than Charlie Jones leaving Iowa for Purdue right now? He's at 603 yards receiving, which I'm sure is more than Iowa has thrown for this year. And he has 7 touchdown receptions. How is Nebraska going to go about trying to stop Charlie Jones?
Well, I mean, the only saving grace is he might have the one touchdown pass that Spencer Petras has thrown so far this year. So that might be, there's a little bit of uniqueness there that he's missing. But yeah, I mean, he's going to be a tough matchup. And, you look at the way Purdue's offense kind of functions and what Nebraska might not have fully in this game on defense. I'm a little concerned about Payne Durham. I mean, the tight end for Purdue is very good up the seam. I'm curious to see how Nebraska chooses to match him up, because do you go with a banged up Luke Reimer? Is it Kolarevic? Is it Gifford? I mean, you've got options. I don't know which is the best, but those two guys really concern me. And you talk about what Jones is doing. I mean, everybody was all about David Bell and kind of, the production that he had. I mean, Jones has better numbers than Bell did. And that's a little scary for a Nebraska secondary that is going to play a little bit more aggressive under Bill Bush, is going to put their guys a little bit more on an island. And you saw last week, I mean, if a quarterback makes a couple good throws, they're going to give up some deep balls. So I think if you're Nebraska's defense, you're going to have to be okay with giving up a couple of those and kind of getting reset, which they've done well over the last 2 games. But, you're going to have to be at least prepared for that this week, I think.
Want to mention quickly, Payne Durham actually had 109 yards receiving last week against Maryland, and Charlie Jones only had 15 yards. So Purdue, they can do it a couple different ways, and Nebraska's going to have to defend it all. He
was a little banged up. Brom said this week he acknowledged that. So that's something to monitor with Charlie Jones. I'm not saying he's not going to go. But I think that contributed to him only having 15 yards.
Absolutely. Jack, one of the ways that Nebraska can slow down this passing attack, and one of the ways that Purdue might be most vulnerable right now, they have a third string right tackle, and Nebraska's pass rush has gotten better each of the last 2 weeks. Do you think this is a big opportunity ahead for an O'Shawn Mathis and a Garrett Nelson, and maybe even Ty Robinson and Colton Feast, all of whom have sacks in the last couple games?
Yeah, the pass rush has definitely looked different over the last couple of weeks, and I think Indiana had some holes in that offensive line when they were doing it, and I think honestly that the defense, one of the things that they've done is found a good way to attack some of the weaknesses in the defensive lines that they face, or excuse me, the offensive lines that they faced the last couple of times. Some really well-timed twists and those sorts of things, and Sean Mathis has been a lot more active, and Nelson has still been, I think, a bona fide pass rusher throughout the course of this year. And so, yeah, I would say, Mike, if this is a game that they want to be in, the pass rush has to be significant. The pass rush we have to be talking 2, 3, 4 sacks at least in this game for Nebraska to be able to slow down this offense enough to stay in the game. And I mean, look, I can't say that it's going to happen, but they're in a lot better position now to be able to say that's a possibility than they were, say, 3-4 weeks ago.
This is just open for anybody. When's the last time Timmy Bleekrode attempted a field goal? I legitimately don't know.
Ooh. Was it the Oklahoma game?
Nope. I'm fairly certain it was against Georgia Southern and he made it. But this is the longest stretch I can think of Nebraska football attempting a field or without attempting a field goal.
Wouldn't it have been the field goal at the end?
Oh, yeah.
The Georgia missed one?
Yeah, there you go.
Left a sour taste in his mouth.
Nebraska has not they have not attempted a field goal since, which seems remarkable across 12 quarters. And it's not like they haven't had opportunities to. They just keep not getting first downs in the red zone or are in a position where they kind of have to go for it. So throwing that out there. All right, let's dive over to prediction time. Oddly specific predictions, everybody's favorite part of the show. We're very curious what Michael Bruntz is going to go with this week. Feels like he and BC had a pretty good time out there in Rutgers in terms of their predictions. Yeah, I don't know how everything else went, but
we nailed ours. Nebraska fans are probably lucky you didn't nail yours. With the Eric
when they went up 14-13 and were kicking the ball off to Crookshank, I thought to myself, did you just do something here? Is this going to be on you somehow?
BC leans over to me and goes, I hope Schaefer isn't right here. But as we know, Travis Vokalek did have 6 catches and a touchdown last week, as predicted here on the Husker247 Hypecast. We only missed the touchdown length by, I believe, 6 yards. So we're riding high over here. I think it's going to be another tight end type game. I'm going to go oddly specific, though, with Purdue's tight end. I think Payne Durham goes for 112 yards receiving on Saturday. I think he has a big game. I think Nebraska struggles to cover him. You're going to get a couple of maybe a missed tackle or something like that, but 112 for him. I also think that Anthony Grant is going to break Purdue's streak of not giving up a 100-yard rusher. So 104 for Anthony Grant. He kind of falls forward for those extra couple of yards late to get the 100. So I think it's going to be a productive day for those two guys.
I like it. BC, what do you got?
Nebraska's going to score a defensive touchdown, and it's going to come on a fumble recovery. I get sometimes particular Husker plays from the past in my head sometimes that bring forth these predictions where we'll kind of duplicate this. It'll be sort of like the Miami 14 game. Who was their back who fumbled it? Josh Mitchell picked it up. Remember, it was just like, oh, here's the ball, and it'll come out to Marquise Buford, and he's going to run it 59 yards for a touchdown. It's going to it's going to be Purdue's drive, and it'll be one of those plays. It also will remind me of this is maybe too far back for you, Schaefer, but Kansas State, Nebraska, the year they had Michael Bishop, Ralph Brown recovered a fumble and ran it back, and it kind of kept them in the game, even though it felt like they were outmanned a little that day. I'll say Marquise Buford runs a 59-yard touchdown back, and it's sort of like, okay, they could do it still when they're behind. That's what's going to happen.
Wasn't that 1998 for Michael Bishop?
Yeah, I mean, you were alive.
I was alive. I certainly remember Michael Bishop. I remember Nebraska losing that game.
Yeah, sorry, I shortchanged you on that one.
I was like, how deep are you going here? Are we talking like late 80s Kansas State?
Back when Lynn Dickey was the quarterback of Kansas State in 1962. Yeah.
Right. I'll get mine in because it's kind of similar to BC's. I think Nebraska's going to have a takeaway on Saturday that stems from O'Shawn Mathis batting a pass up in the air, similar to how he did against Rutgers on Friday night, getting a big paw up there, active hands. Nebraska's defensive linemen have done a nice job with that this year. Probably don't get enough credit for it. They have several breakups that way. But he's going to bat one up that Nick Henrich is going to run under and catch, but he will not return it for any positive yards because he will make a sliding catch to get this ball at the 37-yard line, leading to a touchdown from Nebraska on the very next play. As the Bomb the Ball Club celebrates greatly, Trey Palmer hauls it in. What a two-play sequence for Nebraska.
Head first or feet first on the slide.
It's going to be like a baseball center fielder sliding underneath, starting with their legs, sliding under it and catching it that way.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for the clarification. I did need to get that in there.
I just want to know how I'm looking. I want to know when I see it.
Yeah. Jack, the table is set. Bring it all home.
Second quarter, Nebraska is down by, we're going to say down by 10 to Purdue early in the second quarter. Purdue will have just scored a touchdown. They will kick off to Nebraska. Nebraska will start around their 25. They will go 3 and out. They will set up to punt. And Nebraska's got nothing to lose. They're the underdog in this game. It's time to get crazy. And what is this? A fake punt on 4th down and short. Brian Buschini is going to throw the ball. It is going to land harmlessly incomplete. I'm going to lose my mind. But then all of a sudden, that little yellow graphic is going to pop up on the screen. Roughing the punter while passing. 15 yards, keeps it alive. Nebraska finishes up the drive. They cut it to a 3-point game before halftime, and it changes the tenor of the entire game.
I love everything about that. I love it all. I hope we get to see it.
How about a bonus pick? What random penalty are the Big Ten refs going to emphasize this week?
Illegal man downfield.
We're going to get a lot of illegal.
That's actually a really good one.
Yeah,
there's going to be 20 illegal men downfield in this game throughout.
There's just going to be sideline interference everywhere.
I was thinking hands to the face, but I like the illegal man downfield. I'm good with that one. All right, pick to click time. I'll get mine out of the way. Garrett Nelson, 3.5 sacks the last 2 games. I think he gets another 1.5 sacks on Saturday. That'll put him up to, I believe, 6 for the season, a new career high for Garrett Nelson. Jack, where are you going?
Going to be a lot of focus on those bombs we talked about to Trey Palmer. There's another receiver out there who's got a lot of bulletin board material because everybody's talking about transfers from Iowa dominating this game, but they're forgetting one of the transfers from Iowa at this point. Oliver Martin goes triple-digit yards in this game thanks to one 65-yard bomb plus plenty of catches when the focus is on Trey Palmer. Triple digits for Oliver Martin, the transfer from Iowa. You want to talk about this game?
Jack, if you could find a line out there for Oliver Martin to finish with more yards than Charlie Jones, would you make a trip across the river?
I'll go to the Bob Carey Bridge right now.
PC?
This is a little bit of a gamble, but I'm gonna say Jock Yant pops up in a key and sort of has a key couple series where he maybe gets a little something going. I felt like he ran really hard when he got in there for his 3 or 4 carries, and in fact almost busted about a 60-yarder if he would have got through that. Guy got him at a shoestring, I think, but. Jock Yant, I'm not saying 100 or anything. I'm just saying he has a solid game as a compliment to Anthony Grant, and I think could be important.
Brunt?
I'm not going to – I don't think there's going to be a lot of statistics to back this up. It's going to be more anecdotal. But I think Ty Robinson and Colton Feast are going to just muck things up in the middle of that defense. They've been playing well the last couple of weeks. I think Nebraska's been doing a better job of rotating up front to keep them fresh, but I think Ty Robinson especially is going to have a nice game here. Going to make it a little tough sledding for the Purdue running game. Maybe you see a half sack, maybe a tackle for loss from him. But I think those guys are going to continue to flash in this game.
All right, let's do it. I have no idea what anyone's going to predict with this game. Purdue right now is a 14-point favorite, I believe is where the line sits. We'll just reverse our way backwards. Michael Brunts, where are you going?
Yeah, Purdue's a tough matchup, I think, because we've seen that they can do kind of different styles of play and win. I mean, they went up to Minnesota and kind of played Big Ten West ball. They can chuck it around the yard a little bit. I think Nebraska's magic carpet ride ends this week. However, I think it's going to be a Nebraska cover. So I'm going to say Purdue 29, Nebraska 23.
Okay. BC?
Yeah, I'm picking Purdue as well. But I will say that what Mark Whipple the other day when he said, we sucked at practice last week, basically. He's like, we stunk it up on offense, but we've had a really good couple days. And I know people don't like to hear.
Oh, no.
No, I know people hate that. They hate that. Like we had the best 2 days we've ever had. They think of Frost right away. But I trust old Whipple that he's just truthful with us. And the fact that he's like, yeah, we stunk it up last week didn't shock me. We played like crap and I coached like crap and all that stuff. So I took that as like, if you're a Husker fan who wants to believe, it was sort of an optimistic thing. Like, well, okay, that makes sense because they sure look like dog crap on offense. So at least they were practicing like it. And maybe this week it's different now that the boys are getting after it behind the scenes. That said, I think they will be better on offense, but I think they're going to have trouble with some of the guys they might have to fill in for on defense. Purdue's going to score a little too much, and I'm going to say 34-24 in an entertaining game, but too much Aiden O'Connell, too much tight end. That's what I think.
Jack?
The universe owes me a groin kick. It's been 2 weeks without. I haven't gone that long, Mike and 24/7 guys, for months, years. It's been forever.
So the ice pack is ready to go.
The ice pack is starting to get freezer burn. It's been in there so long. I wish I didn't believe this, but it's got to be done in a heartbreaking way. So it's not going to be a 20-point loss. The line in Vegas isn't right. I agree with you guys. The line is too big, but it'll be higher scoring. Give me Purdue 34, Nebraska 30. Get that ice pack ready.
It's the Big Ten West.
Feeling too good.
It's the Big Ten West. Nobody knows what the hell's going to happen. Nebraska 28, Purdue 24. I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
Good.
Too many turnovers from Aiden O'Connell. The Boilermakers not primetime ready. Mickey keeps winning at night. This thing rolls into a big home game against Illinois.
Wow.
Who the hell has ever said that sentence before? You're going to be saying it for 2 straight weeks.
College game day watch. College game day watch.
Does Trev come into the locker room then and either it's a video like, I'd like to announce something. This is your head coach. And then it's like, Mickey's the guy. It's all over.
I literally don't think they can't fit another person in that visiting locker room. It's so tight in there.
Yeah, that's
He's going to be doing it from the ramp where all the equipment things are going up.
Yeah. The equipment would be too noisy that it kind of intercepts the audio.
What did he
don't
say?
hear it.
What?
I think he said he's the permanent head coach.
Is there any? Have you guys checked? Is there any rain in the forecast so that way you can be standing there doing your interviews in the rain in West Lafayette?
62 and sunny on Saturday is what I understand. That field's still going to look terrible, but no rain.
All right, there you have it. The Husker Hypecast getting you ready for Saturday, 6:30 against Purdue. Jack Mitchell, appreciate your time as always.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. For everybody else with Husker247, Brian Christopherson, Michael Brunts, I'm Mike Shaver. Be sure to check out Husker247.com. Plenty of coverage leading up to this game. Plenty of coverage coming out after it. Be sure to stop by. We'll catch you next week with more podcasts.